Audio and video is here for
Yeah, I can
non-public
hear Brian in the
content.
background. Chilling.
So, comfortable turning your
Joey, did you do my intro?
Oh, you have something else open that's using your cam? Microsoft Teams or Skype or something.
Oh shit. Am I live?
Hold on. Do you want to? Dang it, I messed up.
Hey, that's okay, man. I'll just go. All right.
No, let me run the. Let me just run it back real quick.
All
Or just go. Just go. Yeah, just go.
right. Hey, this is Aaron Siebert, Combat Vet Vision. Welcome to my show. Hey, this is where I give my opinion, or those that are on my show give their opinions about their lives, my life, things that we've seen, things that we know. For our sponsors, supporters, volunteers, combat veterans, this is a place to help the public better understand from our perspective, as well as helping out those combat vets that are dealing with things somewhere, somehow. Maybe they'll be able to relate. Maybe it won't. Maybe it's just that one person dealing with whatever they're dealing with and how they're living their life, what they've seen, what they've done, their story. This is our lives, and we get a chance to kind of bring it to you. And I'm fortunate enough to have a good buddy of mine that's we go way back, um, and Randy Bojorquez, retired Navy chief, as well as I'm a retired Navy chief, and I knew him when he was like a baby doc coming in through Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton and getting out to 3-5, and we went to war together at 3-5. He was with Lima Company and doing some other cool things, so he's going to get into that story. So, hey, Randy, thanks for being on my show, brother. How you
Hey,
doing?
thanks for having me, man. Feels great. Doing pretty good out here.
Yeah. And Randy, you're sitting down there in Texas right now, close to Houston. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm about an hour and a half away from the big city. Sitting out across the street from a lake, so pretty peace and quiet out here.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, man, from the beginning. What was it that inspired you to join the military for one, and obviously, going into the Navy as a corpsman. Eventually, you knew we were going to go with the Marines. Talk a little bit about your history into that.
All right. So prior to joining, I'm first generation from my family, born in the States. My family comes from Central America, and I wanted to be a doctor, and I figured I'd start off small and I get into a nursing program and build from there. And, it just got expensive, and it was super expensive to just jump into a program, even with financial aid. So, I was like, you know what, I'll join the military, get money for school and come back and finish it. Well, I joined pre 9/11. So, I mean, I still got to, explore deployments of what they were before 9/11 actually even happened, before the TSA even existed. So within my first 5 years, I was deployed 3 times. And really what changed it all for me was, you know, the job that I was trained to do as a corpsman. Um, the medicine that I was taught was pretty much 30 years old, right? Because the last time prior to OIF, the Marine Corps had ever been tested at a big scale of what we did in the invasion into Iraq was Vietnam. So like our medicine that we had was 30 years old. And so a lot of lessons learned that we went through, that I personally went through, changed and evolved. And really, like, I was just really intrigued with it. Like the skill set that we get taught in the classroom to go to a foreign country and be able to apply it on the battlefield was the best fucking feeling in the world for me. So I just kind of fell in love with the job, man, of being a corpsman. Sure, you run around with a bunch of Marines and carry about 60 pounds worth of crap on your back, but who doesn't like sleeping under the stars and using a rock for a pillow and whatnot? But the biggest thing is the camaraderie, and the brotherhood that you learn to develop, and over time it grows, and that pretty much becomes that family. So yeah, I wrote it out, and I never expected to retire. Like I never thought I'd make it that far. And yeah, just from one duty station to another, it just kept getting better and better for me, and so I when I was selected to chief, it was cool because I was not far from where I grew up and whatnot, like around the Marines, so they were all there and whatnot. But if I could go back, I'd go back to being a third class and running around with a bunch of Marines, because to me it was fun, man. It was probably one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. You're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, you're not a physician assistant, you're a corpsman, and you do everything under the damn rainbow. And so, to look back to it, to what I wanted to be, I feel now I'm like, you know what, I got a better gig now, screw going back and trying to be a doctor now, whatever. Like I enjoyed my time as a corpsman, and and thankfully, like I was able to take that skill set and really develop our basics and our skills and amplify it even more, to where we can teach it back to the youngsters coming in, and and giving them like that real life firsthand experience. Like, hey man, like these are the life lessons that we went through, the mistakes that we made, and this is why you're doing it this way. So you don't repeat those mistakes, that history. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I got no regrets of it. I think the second best job I had in the Navy was being a chief. And that's, to me, was always one of those pinnacle points in a career where it's either going to make you or break you. And I was a solid corpsman coming up. And everyone knows, like around Marines, it's like you earn doc. It ain't just handed out out of a Cracker Jack box. You got to earn that. So same thing with the chief, man. It wasn't one of those things where, yeah, you're just another dude in khakis. Nah, if you're a chief, you're a chief of chiefs. And it was great leading young sailors and basically teaching them the things that I was taught once as a youngster, and to them be able to see that even the chief's still out there doing it and whatnot was a good feeling, to let them know, like, hey man, like just because I'm a chief doesn't mean I forget the basics. So when I look back to before I even joined, I used to look at life a certain way. I used to picture myself being a certain somebody, but once I joined the military, man, that completely changed my outlook completely. And who I found myself to become is really truly who I wanted to be, or I never thought I ever would have been that person. So honestly, like who I am today, I can thank like all the guys I ever came up around with, because you learn bits and pieces from everybody, and everybody knows, man, like you running around in a platoon of Marines, like there ain't no filters, man. Somebody's gonna call you out on your BS, right? And so it was always good that we always had that like direct, we can call each other out and square ourselves away and whatnot. So I look back at a lot of that taught me a lot, of standards and expectations. And even now, like I'm out, but yet I still have a standard and expectation, and after I retired, I spent the last pretty much 8 months just traveling, and I've come across a lot of vets out there, a lot of guys, maybe only did one enlistment, maybe two, but there's some pretty cool spots across America that has, these little dive bars and whatnot, and you run into some pretty cool dudes. But one of the biggest things I've learned so far since I've been out is that there's a lot of guys out there that just really don't have the help or don't know how to ask. When I was in Vegas, there's it's called the Leatherneck bar. It's a straight Marine bar out there. It's very, very cool. It has a lot of history all over the bar and whatnot. A lot of vets go there, and there's a lot of guys up in there that they go and try to drink their problems away. And in the short time that I was there, I probably helped maybe 4 dudes get their file their claims and stuff like that. These are guys that have been out for a hot minute, and it's like, man, like the help is there, but at the same time, I guess it's just kind of hard to take that initiative yourself. But if you got somebody willing to help you, don't be afraid to let them help you. But yeah, I've met some cool people along the way. A couple of guys out in Colorado, same thing in Kansas and Oklahoma. But eventually, made it back to my stomping grounds of where I grew up. Just, it's kind of like one of those stories where, like, the young man leaves like with nothing and then comes back with everything. Like, walks a little taller, walks a little prouder. That's really it, man. Like, made it back home, and I still have my old friends from back in the day. They're all like, "Dude, we can't believe you stuck it out this long," and they're all happy for me and whatnot. So, I'm just enjoying it, man.
Yeah. To talk about that a little bit, we Jason Brooks put together, the corpsman from 3.5 back in the day on a string, and we keep that string alive. And I threw it out there. I say, "Hey, does anybody want to get on my show?" And you jumped on. But there's 15 guys in that group that deployed to 3.5 in OIF 1 and crossed the line of departure. Didn't know where we were going to go, how it was going to turn out. And you said a lot of really cool things about the brotherhood. You said a lot of really cool things about how cool it is within this bubble. We're not doctors, we're not nurses, we're corpsmen, and we can run the gambit, meaning we can do a lot of things that doctors have to be accountable for that we don't have to necessarily, but except for under the doctor. Nurses can't even perform some of the activities or some of the treatments that we need to do. So there's this huge, really cool thing within the bubble of the military, within the Navy, as a corpsman. And we have this certain respect with the Marine Corps because we go with them and we wear the uniform. You wouldn't even know where the corpsman's at. You might be able to identify him if you're a Marine and he's carrying the bag that he is, but other than that, you won't see it on the news. It'll just show a bunch of Marines and you'll just assume we are one. But but you also said some really cool things, like you wanted to be a doctor. You found yourself, for me, I look at things as quality of life now. And I think, as I listen to you talk, it sounds like your quality of life was what you were doing and the brotherhood and this person you became, and you're proud of this whole thing. And I'm hearing it. I'm feeling it. I'm loving it. I feel a lot of these things. I maybe don't know how to articulate it. This is why it's important for me to have this cool discussion with you, because I'm learning right now from you how to articulate some of the thoughts that I deal with a lot, and how do you really kind of translate them into society's understanding. You really can't, because our whole world was in this bubble of unbelievable capability. And when we're called upon, we have a long history. I mean, our corpsman heritage is crazy. We learn even more as we learn the Marine Corps' history with the Marines, because Marines are really high on their history, and we as corpsmen have a really cool history. So, listen to you live up to the expectations of the history of a corpsman is pretty awesome too.
Hell yeah, man! It's and like now I tell people still, like, having the ownership, and because it's different now. Like, youngsters now are different compared to when we were youngsters, and I run into a lot of like mid-20s and late 20s, and just they kind of like pass life without a purpose, or like they're just kind of going through the motions, and the other day I was having a conversation with this 26-year-old, and just kind of like hanging out, not really sure what to do. And it's like, hey man, like when are you gonna own it for yourself? Like, own your life. Like, don't do what everybody else does. Like, own your actions. If you make a mistake, own it, but at least you're owning it and say like, hey, you know what, I did this, I messed up, and I can learn from it, versus pawning it off on somebody else or blaming somebody else. And he was like, man, like, he was just like, who talks like that? I'm like, look, man, like, I didn't just start talking this way overnight. Like, this is 21 years of like, going through stuff and life lessons, and some hard ones at times. But at the same time, I've owned my actions, every single action that I've taken, and if I got to suffer a consequence, and guess what? I'm going to suffer it, but I'm going to take it because I made that mistake, But I'm gonna take it and learn from it as well. At the same time, use it to teach others so they don't make those mistakes. So, there's still things that like I do, and I still find myself mentoring kids. It doesn't have to be in a uniform, but it's still those life lessons that can help others, and just kind of helping people along the way. Right now out here in the city, out in Houston, man, crime rates are ridiculous, and but there's just basic things, like we were taught to be very observant of our surroundings and whatnot. I had a friend of mine, she went and pumped gas, like got off of work at like 2 a.m, and like pretty much made herself a target, like left her passenger door open. Somebody went in and took all her stuff, and I'm like, I kind of like, helped her through it. But I told her, I'm like, look, man, like you kind of made yourself an easy target. Like, you're stopping at a place at 2 a.m. where there ain't nobody there. Sure, it's all well lit up, but there's always somebody in the bush watching. But at the same time, like they start thinking differently now. Like they start changing their routine. They're not very routine anymore. Where, she'd go park in the same spot every single time and whatnot, right? So, I take a lot of the things that I've learned over the last 21 years and try to find ways to apply it out here. Because obviously, I mean, I can't talk jerry cans and water bowls and whatnot. Because everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" Can't do that stuff out here.
Right.
But I can take
Clean
the
water is
basics.
kind of like clean water. What is clean water, man? It comes out of the faucet, right?
you know so I gotta I gotta find ways to like be able to decipher and depict what we went through and put it on a broad span of how people would interpret it here, and can learn from it. Because I mean, I honestly don't feel like everything that I did I'm like never going to use again, because honestly I'm still using it. Like I am still using a lot of the skill sets that I had as a junior sailor, as I had as a senior sailor, as I had as a chief. So to me, it's been a good transition into the civilian world. Um, I do find myself sometimes like just thinking about stuff from back in the day, like maybe sitting around the mess and that camaraderie, drinking a cup of coffee or whatever, out with the run with the guys. But at the
Yeah.
same time, though, man, I
Hey,
find
Borges,
myself
just so
uh,
everybody knows, you just retired in June, correct?
January.
In January. Yeah, you retired in January. You came back from Hawaii, so you're freshly retired. So there's a lot of cool things that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
people can understand that, hey, the transition wasn't that long ago, and so these connections are still there. It's awesome.
Yeah,
So
no,
go
I
ahead.
still get, text messages from some of my guys like, "Hey, Chief." I'm like, "Man, I'm retired now." They're like, "Oh man, but I know you can answer it." I'm like, "Come on, man." Like, and I don't mind helping them out, but still, like some of the senior guys are like, "Hey man, do you miss it or what?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm actually pretty good. I'm content." And that was one of my biggest things too with retiring, like somebody had one that once asked me like, "How do you know when it's time to retire?" And I honestly couldn't answer that. But when I got to when I left First Marine Division, right, as I was the SCL for 5th Marines, the senior enlisted leader out there, that was probably one of the best jobs I've ever had. Managing 215 sailors, responsible for 5,000 Marines, right? The healthcare of them. That to me was like awesome, right? You're impacting all those sailors and whatnot. And then when I went to Hawaii, it was kind of like that kind of escape job almost. I went from 215 sailors to like 25, which easy day, man. 25, I could do that in my sleep, right? But at the end of the day, though, I still like think back about those times. I'm like, damn, man, like those are good times. But I got to the point where like a lot of my junior sailors are already in leadership positions. Some of them are chiefs already. So to me, it was like, you know what? I'm content, man. I've taken all my junior guys, and when I say my junior guys, I took out 1st Battalion and 4th Marines on a deployment in 2016, and a lot of those guys, they were junior sailors back then. Some are IDCs now, some are chiefs, two of them are senior chiefs, you know. And to me, that was like, if my guys are making and filling those positions that I held once, then I'm doing good. You know, I'm good. I'm content because I didn't leave nobody behind. You know, even the guys that have gotten out, like there's still guys like, hey, Chief, can I use you as a reference? Absolutely. Don't hesitate, you know. And I've got a few guys that, you know, they'll put me down as a point of contacts, and somebody calls me, asks me 20 questions about them, you know, and they're like, hey, Chief, thanks, man. I got that job. I'm like, cool, you know. So when my day came that said I'd retire, I was like, yeah. It was like I had a feeling of gratitude, you know, like I did my part. I took care of my dudes, and now my dudes are taking care of others, you know. I just didn't kind of like bounce and left them to the winds to figure it out. You know, it gave them a solid structure and foundation that they can build on, and they can take that solid structure and foundation and teach it to others so that they can build on. They can build their own legacies as they come up through the ranks. So yeah, for me to retire, I was definitely content, and you know, I don't look back to it. I just look back to the good times of like hanging around with the camaraderie of the other, you know, fellow chief and your sailors, and just kind of, you know, the usual of like shooting the shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now since you've been out, you've done a lot of things, man. On your retirement, you went back up to the 5th Marines, hiked up First Sergeant's Hill, did some stuff up there, took some of the guys with you. I wanted to join you. I was busy doing some stuff, but missed out on that. Talk about what that meant to you. And then since you've been out, what else have you been doing? So first talk about that retirement day.
Shoot, man, retirement day was it was an awesome day, man. It was best weather that Camp Pendleton had in a long time. It was like it's pretty much 75 degrees up at 5th Marines, man. And you know what better place than out at the memorial, you know, and you know, hanging up my hat where I started it, literally. You know, I checked in there as an HA, and you know, a lot of those buildings weren't there. That memorial wasn't there. You know, First Sergeant's Hill wasn't a memorial back then. It was our punishment, man. Like I remember fucking up in the BAS, man. Had to drop blouse and make my way to the top, you know, boots and utes, and come back, you know. But you know, over time, like, you know, it became a memorial and whatnot. And I'd always ensure that like that is always what it is. You know, it's not a sightseeing destination. It's what it is. It's a memorial. Like you go up there, you pay your respects, you come back down. But it's not a place where you're just gonna go and like shoot the shit for no damn reason. Like there's a lot of dudes that are up there, you know. And taking guys up there, like, you know, went up with Reyes and Brooks, man. Like it was good, man. It was like we felt like we were HNs again going up that thing, you know, like just bullshitting the whole way up there, and then getting up there and paying our respects, you know. Old Michael Van Johnson's up there, you know, that bench that we have up there. And that's the thing, man. Like a lot of guys don't know the history of those corpsmen that are up there. And that was one of the things that, you know, I had the privilege of in my career was I knew those guys. I knew who they were, man. One of them was my roommate, you know. So we got to know, you know, I got to know who they were, what they were about. Like, you know, they were just another dude, just like me, just like you, just like any of us out there, you know. And so to be able to take sailors up there and educate them and give them the history of those sailors up there, of our brothers, you know, was always a good feeling. At the same time, well, what the better feeling was when my junior guys would take the new guys that just checked in, and they'd run them up there and give them a history class, you know, like you're passing on that knowledge, you're passing on that tradition, you know. That to me was a very good moment in my life. And doing my retirement up there, you know, at the memorial was one of the best feelings, man. Like it was a good closeout to my chapter, you know. And then once I, you know, the retirement and all, I just kind of started, you know, I've seen the world, man. Navy took me a lot of places, but I've never really seen the States. So I just started pretty much cross country in it, man. And I went from California to Nevada, hung out there for a couple of months, went down to Arizona, and then shot up to Utah. And I have an uncle out there, you know, and my goddaughter lives out there. And so, you know, there's a lot of times during my time of service that I would just miss out on events, man, you know, birthdays and, you know, celebrations and holidays and whatnot, never get the chance to spend it with them. So, yeah, I spent probably about 3 months up there. And then one day in June, Reyes hit me up. He's like, "Hey, bro, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing, man. Hanging out, trying to get fat, because that's what everybody does." He's like, "Man, you're never gonna get fat, man. You run too much." I'm like, "Yeah, that's still true, man. I still run." But my uncle was trying, man. He was feeding me like 5-course meals 3 times a day. I put on a little weight out there, but lost it all. But yeah, flew out to El Paso and helped Reyes drive up to New York. And that was pretty cool because we stopped by and saw some of the old guys. We saw Scott Pribble out in Tennessee. And hung out with him. And Scott, man, Scott was our senior line corpsman in OIF. Scott was a first class, Reyes was a third class, and I was the third, man. And he was our senior line corpsman as a first class. Hung out with him out in Tennessee. Drank a beer with them and whatnot. And we went from El Paso to Dallas, from Dallas to Nashville to pass through West Virginia, and then to Philadelphia. And then in Philly, Jason Brooks came out. We stayed at his mom's house, and yeah, like it was great, man, hanging out there with him too. And he showed us around his stomping grounds when he was a youngster and whatnot. And then he took us the rest of the way into New York, and he's from up there too, so his dad lives up there. And it was great, man. We kind of there was one night we were walking around Little Italy, man, and I took a picture of us, right? And I kid you not, man, I went back and looked. I found a picture of us when we were in Thailand, man, and it's the same, dude. Like we felt like we were those young sailors in a foreign port, man, just walking down through the streets, right? And yeah, man, it was cool, right? So from there, like we went up to where Jason's dad lived, where he grew up north of New York City, man, and it's beautiful up there. That was my first time to really explore New York like that. Like I'd only been into the city, but to go into like northern New York, man, it's beautiful up that way. He took us up into so we went to West Point, right? And so Jason's driving, and he's trying to get through the gate, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you can't get in with your veterans card," because he had a VA card. And the guy's like, "Yeah, man, you can't come in with that." And I'm like, "What about mine?" He goes, "Oh yeah, you're good." Showed him my retired ID card. He's like, "Yeah, man, you're good." so yeah, man, we went through there, man, and hung out with his pops and his stepmom up there, and it was great, man, hanging out. And then I flew back from New York. I flew back to Utah, where I was staying at, and from there, man, I started. I pretty much bought a house online, is what I did, because I just happened to see it online, and luckily, a good friend of mine, she's a realtor out here, and she actually kind of did. She did like a route recon for me, man. She went and checked out the place, scoped it out and everything, like gave me her point of view and what she thought. And she was like, "Hey, it's a really good house, man. Like there ain't no issues. It's built well and everything." And so, I bought a house, and I was like, "Well, damn, now I got to make it back." So when I left Utah, I went up to Colorado. A good friend of mine, he made Chief the same year I did. We both made it out at ACU 5, and that ACU 5 is that blue side Navy that, it's a rare opportunity for us as corpsmen to even end up there, and I got the privilege to work there. And, I met a lot of great dudes out there, awesome little community. They're very tight knit, and, it's crazy when like me, like I was an outsider there, and I was very well accepted. My reputation preceded me there, and those guys were like, "Dude, who are you, man? You're like, we've never seen somebody like this, man." I'm like, "Look, man, it's just the standard and expectations, So, my buddies, he got stationed out in Colorado, where he's from, which was cool because he's an OS, an operations specialist, and out in Colorado, there's that, it's an Air Force base, but they take Navy rates out there, operations specialists, and all they do is really watch monitors, man. They do a lot of tracking, and there's secret squirrel stuff out there. But yeah, man, he was out there as an OSCS, and Matthew Groves is his name, and yeah, I stopped by and hung out with him for a weekend, and he lives in a small town, which is really cool, very vet friendly and whatnot. a lot of veteran businesses out there too, which is really cool. And hung out with him, and then I left Colorado and shot down to Oklahoma, and I hung out with Ed Biggs. He was a senior chief that I worked with at ACU 5 when IDC there. Great dude, man, very knowledgeable. And he's been retired now. Like, to me, he was probably one of my mentors when I like a quick pocket reference mentor, because he was a senior chief as I was going through season. And he already knew. He's like, dude, he goes, you already have a lot of this down. He goes, it's just fine tuning your skill set when you wear those anchors. But I hung out with him, and he's out there doing good things as well. He'll sometimes shoot out to Alaska and do some fishing out there and whatnot, and try to pack as much fish as he can when he flies it back. But eventually I made it into Texas, and made it to my home. Finally got my stuff in, which I wasn't too happy about, because I've been a couple of weeks, probably like last month, when there was like that trucker shortage out in California. Remember that?
Yeah.
So my stuff was in storage, man. It had been in storage since December of last year, and I had requested for my stuff to get here in September, and nothing. Right? Well, because there was that shortage, they pretty much outsourced anyone. And this is the thing, man. Like, people don't realize, like, yeah, man. Like, when I hear military grade on products, I'm like, lowest bidder. Lowest bidder, man. That was the lowest bidder. Military grade, lowest bidder. And
yeah, because we've seen it all.
Yeah, so I pretty much, man, my stuff got offloaded somewhere out in Arizona, man. So I only got half of my house delivered. The other shit like grew legs and walked away. And yeah,
to
man,
to this day it's gone.
Yeah, man, like and they were like, they shuffled through my stuff, man, and pretty much took like, things that I can't really put a value to, like my awards, plaques, recognitions, and that really sucks. But at the same time, like, I was trying to educate the guy that I was talking to from San Antonio, where, since San Antonio is the closest military base, that's where I got to do my stuff to. And I'm educating him, just, he's a young sergeant, in the Army. And he's just kind of like irritated with his job and whatnot. I'm like, hey, man, listen, like, you're irritated with your job. And I'm like, I lost half my house, dude. Like, you got a job, bro. Like, let's be real here. Like, your job is customer service, man, but you can't be mad at the world just because, you're working a 9 to 5 right now. Like, and you want to, so even in my, like, fucking, being mad at the world for losing my shit, I'm still educating somebody. I'm like, don't be mad at your job. You have a job. Be happy for that, So other than that, though, man, like, yeah, it's been a pretty good last 8 months, man. I haven't really had a job. I've picked up a few contracts here and there where where I've taught classes. I was a TCCC instructor when I was in, and I got my TECC instructing cert, which is basically it's tactical combat casualty care for the civilian first responders, and it's really cool to like meet a lot of civilians that come to these courses. They're very intrigued, very wanting to help people. At the same time, like when you like, I like to empower people with the skill set that we have, right? The stuff that we learn as corpsmen. I've never been that selfish person. Like, I used to teach all my guys in the platoon how to do this stuff, because, worst case scenario, the corpsman goes down. Like, all right, who's left?
Yeah,
and it's happened.
I know the deal.
There's been those scenarios like that, So teaching that stuff out here is very, very cool, and I enjoy it. It's just something that I haven't really got into it too steady yet. Like, I've just done here and there, just kind of something to pass time. And, at the moment, I'm still like, I'd say like still decompressing, trying to get out of routine stuff. Cause I mean, shoot, man, 21 years, you become institutionalized, man,
Yes.
very institutionalized. And, I mean, I cut my hair practically every week, I was doing the math the other day. How much money did I spend on haircuts? I was like, Jesus, man, I would have been a rich man. But yeah, man. Other than that, though, man, it's just like,
hey, real quick. I know you mentioned ACU5. A lot of people don't understand ACU5, and I'll tell you, yeah, I just wanted to touch bases on it. As far as I understand, that's where the LCACs are up for the West Coast, and they branch off from Camp Pendleton. They're their own base right on the ocean, and these LCACs go out and they do some incredible things. They're actually ran by chiefs, and the chiefs are pilots, correct?
correct.
You wouldn't know this, right? This is just kind of some tricky, funny stuff. Like they're actually pilots. Normally, pilots are officers in the military, but when you're talking about the LCACs, which is a huge carry platform, carries a bunch of gear onto the ship. Yeah, go ahead and add any more piece to that, because some people don't know about ACU5, but it's kind of a really cool, unique monster that developed at some point before I was in the Navy. But these are incredible machines, and we've been on them, and so yeah.
Yeah, they're landing craft air cushion is what they are.
Okay.
They're basically aluminum. They're aluminum frames with a airbag underneath that inflates by having two turbines that blow pretty much air into the bag, and it has the fans, pretty much the props towards the back. And yeah, they're designed for amphibious operations, basically offloading heavy equipment. So you can put two tanks on there, two 7 tons. I think up to it's 4 LAVs, 4 Humvees. Yeah, four Humvees. So I mean, it's designed to pull a lot of weight off the ships, and it's the very cool thing about it can go all the way to the beach, right? So any beach,
onto the beach,
exactly. So it pretty much offloads itself from the ship, from the well deck of the ship, and pretty much drives right onto the beach where vehicles can offload, and their design originally was just a heavy lift capability, but you started using it more as a amphibious operations where you offload your Marines off ships, and pretty much it's designed to go through just about any type of terrain coming off the water. So if there's a beach, or there's like somewhat of a dune, it can go right over that dune, no problem, and
swamp.
we'll drop it off on the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're manned by they're flown by chiefs, and a lot of the crew. You have a crew about they operate it. It's about 7 total. Crews are usually about 14, because you have guys that do the ramps and do the tightening down of the gear and whatnot. But you have your pilot, you have a navigator, you have your comms guy, and then you'll have somebody that's in the back that works the gear and whatnot, the load masters. But it's a very unique community. There's a lot of rates in the Navy that go work there, and that to me was probably one of the coolest things, because when I was there, I mean, I learned about rates that I didn't even know existed. Got to meet a mineman. Got to meet airframers, gas turbine systems engineers.
Yeah, because we don't know too many rates, because our Navy was the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
the most part.
So it was
when you get to the blue side, there's other things besides corpsmen in the Navy.
Yeah, it was really cool though, and remember like the IT community coming up, and we had a few ITs there, very knowledgeable dudes. I had one, really really cool story, man. So this kid was an IT on a ship, never had a chief. Works for a communication officer on the ship that he was on. They didn't have a chief. It was just the comm officer in this IT. And the IT, he was there. He got there as a second class, and then was a first class, and really didn't have he had an officer for his chain of command, And when he got to ACU5, one of their first classes, because I kind of like snapped at him, I'm like, hey man, like you're a first class, like, so the other first class was like, hey chief, he's never really had a chief before. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, long story short, man, I pretty much molded this kid to be a good chief, man. He got selected, became a chief, uh, got selected for senior chief, and they got a job offer to go work for the NSA. So yeah, man. So he got out, man, retired, and dude's doing great, man. But he was like, if I would have never learned how to chief, man, how to be a good leader, dude, I don't think I'd even be working here, man, because I was on the verge of like maybe getting out because it's not working out for me, and yeah, man, taught this kid how to like, own it, like, hey, own it, man. If you mess up, own it. But at least you're owning your action and you can take the responsibility to learn from it, And there is a lot of like lot of rates out there, that just come from places where they really didn't have like good leaders, They were on the ship somewhere. A lot of bosun mates were like, yeah, man, we got bosun mate in the Navy is like the grunt from the infantry, like you just put through the ringer and whatnot. But yeah, man, I had a really good time working there. Met a lot of good people, and just got to learn about that side of the Navy that we as corpsmen never get to experience unless we're assigned to a ship or to one of those types of blue side commands. So that was really cool.
Right. Well, good stuff, man. We got a couple minutes left. If you want to say any last words, and if anybody's looking to get a hold of Bojorquez, if you can hit me up on Combat Vet Vision. I'll link you guys up anytime, anyway. Randy's out. He's retired. He's doing his thing. He spent a lot of time with the 3-5 guys, touching bases, getting back to his roots. And now he's back in Texas enjoying some life. So don't bug him too much, but feel free to bug me as much as you like. But yeah, Randy, if you got anything else you want to pop on there, any information you want to put out there, feel free to do it.
Yeah, really, really, to everybody that's out there listening, whether you're a vet or you're not a vet, just realize there's a lot of important dates coming up. Next Sunday is November 7th, and to me, it's very significant because 17 years ago on that day, I was going into Fallujah. So the next couple of days, and there's a lot of guys out there that are just kind of feeling down, feeling different, reminiscing on either good or bad memories. Just don't be afraid to talk to somebody about it. I talk to somebody about it because I have to, and I know sometimes these things aren't very easy to do, but it does help, and even if it's just a small conversation with somebody, shooting the shit with somebody, it kind of helps you not bear that weight on your shoulders, but it helps you pass that time a lot more smoother. So don't be afraid out there. If you're out there feeling alone, man, like hit up Aaron. You want to talk to me? You want to shoot the shit with me? Hey, I'm all about it. Like that's probably one of the best feelings in the world for me as a corpsman was to be able to help somebody, and if I can help you just by giving you an ear, by all means, man, I'm here for you guys. So, hit me up.
Thanks, Randy. Hey, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Hey, I'll be on another podcast called The Field Op, ran by my buddy Francisco Carrera, going by Poncho, on Thursday. So you guys could catch me on that. The Field Op. It'll be a really good deal, and that's basically where we're going to talk about field op stuff. But I hope to get you on there, Randy, at some point because you got a bunch of good field op conversations. But thanks for being on my show, Combat Vet Vision. Thanks for thanks for everything you've done for the country. A lot of times as I listen to you, everyone always says thanks for your sacrifice, and I mean at the time we don't think about it, but you had mentioned something, like you missed a lot of dates and this and this and this, and I think we get institutionalized to kind of forget that we really do give so much of ourselves to the mission of the military service. And so I'm thankful for a lot of things you've touched on, articulated. This whole process of having Combat Vet Vision is a learning process for me too. Better to articulate myself. So I appreciate your brotherhood, your camaraderie, and the chief mess that we're in right now. 2 or more chiefs together makes a chief mess. So welcome to the chief's mess, you out there in the public. But thanks, Randy. I appreciate you.
Yeah, brother. No problem, man. Anytime.
Yeah, this is Aaron Siebert signing off. Until next time, Strength and honor. Out.